Hello, thank you for watching Taxpayer Alert. We really enjoy this program, and we have an exciting guest this time, John Coupal with the Jarvis Taxpayer Association. So, John, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here, Al. Thank you so much.
It seemed like you're just an old friend of our group. When we first started out 6 years ago,
Right.
You kind of took us under your wing and taught us how to communicate and learn something about supporting the taxpayer.
Right.
And it's been 6 years, and every year we try to get a little bit better.
Well, I think a couple things are at play here. Number one, I like getting out of the Sacramento area because our state capital is sometimes the den of craziness, and sometimes I like to get back to a place that's a little bit more real. And every time I come up to Calaveras County, I'm never disappointed. I really like this area a lot. But also for the Calaveras County Taxpayers Association, local taxpayer groups are the eyes and ears of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. You know, HJTA is the largest statewide taxpayer group, not only in California, but probably the nation, with over 200,000 members. And so we do quite a bit. We watch the Capitol, we do litigation, as you know, but we do also rely very much on local groups. So we're very, very happy to partner with the Calaveras County Taxpayers Association.
That brings back some memories. You organized all the taxpayer groups in all the counties all at once in a big meeting in Sacramento. We were there,
Yeah.
and it was just an amazing thing to behold. And for each of us in the various groups to understand that there were so many others doing the same thing and thinking pretty much along the same lines. It was just incredible. So we feel like we're part of a family.
Absolutely.
And which there's hope for the future.
Yes.
And I certainly agree with you. Most of our problems do come from Sacramento.
Yes, the ones that don't come from Washington come from Sacramento.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we try to. Hopefully, we'll have better luck with Sacramento than we are at the national level.
Right.
Now, one of the main things that, of course, that the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association is famous for is Prop 13.
Right.
And Prop 218.
Correct.
And then it's been a struggle because there's been people that want to raise taxes, and they felt that they've been hampered by these laws in doing so. But when they try to get rid of Prop 13, they do their polls and they find that the people really support Prop 13. They don't want to see Prop 13 go.
Right. You know, Prop 13 has almost achieved mythical reputation in the state of California, and I think that's very well deserved. It's also called the third rail of California politics, meaning it's a third rail in a subway system that if you touch the third rail, which is electrified, you get fried. And so that's kind of a standing joke in California that unless you're a very, very liberal politician from a very, very liberal area, it is smart to protect, or at least say that you will protect, Prop 13. And Prop 13 is 37 years old. It was adopted back in 1978. It limited the property tax rate to 1%, and it also limited the annual increases in taxable value for everybody to 2% a year. In the 1970s, people were literally being taxed out of their homes. We had tens of thousands of homeowners being taxed out of their homes. And it wasn't so much anger as fear that was driving the political groundswell that was Proposition 13. And Howard Jarvis really spearheaded the effort, and it was a groundswell it was a popular taxpayer revolt that Ronald Reagan recognized and he became a part of, and he took some of those limited government messages to Washington, and of course he's known as a fiscal conservative, but he and Howard Jarvis were very good friends, and we're very proud of that friendship over the years.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, one of the things probably the most important thing, well, there's several things you're working on.
Sure.
They're all important, but it seems like this unfair fire tax is an issue, and you launched a lawsuit. And it's gone for several years now. And now we've just got our tax bills with that unfair tax, and we're sending protest letters to the Board of Equalization, and George Runner is helping us to do so.
Right.
And what's the current status of that?
Well, for people who aren't aware of this, I think a lot of people in Calaveras County are aware of it because many of them reside in areas that are subject, or what they call a state responsibility area under CAL FIRE, meaning that CAL FIRE does have jurisdiction. This was clearly a tax. It was imposed by the legislature, but it was imposed without the constitutionally mandated 2/3 vote of each house. They called it a fee, not a tax. Well, our litigation, I think, will prove that it is really a tax, that there's not a connection between where the revenue is going and the method by which they're imposing it on rural property owners. 800,000 property owners throughout the state of California are subject to this tax. Now, unfortunately, the way it was set up, it's very difficult administratively to file all the paperwork. You have to file every year a claim for refund in order to be a member of our class action suit. We filed suit a little less than 3 years ago, and we are still in the trial court, but we do have a court hearing coming up in June that is what we call a motion to certify the class, which means if we get over that hurdle, the judge will say, yes, this is an appropriate class action, which means we can get legal relief for everyone in the class, which means all the property owners who are subject to the fee, and we're hoping whether or not they filed the paperwork. We don't know whether the judge will allow that, but we are advising everybody every year, submit the paperwork. They can go to our website at hjta.org, and there's a fire tax banner right there that will walk you through the process of how to get your claim for refund filed in a timely manner. Again, we're confident on the merits of this lawsuit, but it has been, Al, very, very frustrating at the delays put in front of us by CAL FIRE, the Board of Equalization, of course the Attorney General. They know that they can collect and spend the money during the pendency of the litigation.
How much money have they spent? And now it's gone into the general fund, I assume.
Yes, it did go into the general fund, and here's the insult. This was adding injury to insult in that the tax was not for additional fire suppression services. It was merely to free up some of the general fund that it could be spent on the budget deficit that existed 3 years ago. Well, now we are being told that, happy days are here again. We've got a $2 billion surplus, which, by the way, I don't believe myself, but let's assume for the moment that's true. If you listen to what our leaders are telling us, we've got this surplus, then why do you need this CAL FIRE tax anymore? Well, the reason they want it is this is an ongoing war against rural Californians. These taxes are imposed by the political elites in the major metropolitan areas, Los Angeles and San Francisco, and they, quite frankly, they will try to raise taxes on the rural Californians any chance they get.
Well, they're certainly doing it. Now, I understand that if you got your notice from the Board of Equalization, the 30 days to respond is from the date on that bill, not when you receive it.
Right, and we think that is absurdly short. In other words, the IRS can take 3 to 5 years to come after you, but now they're putting a 30-day statute of limitations on the right to file these claims for what they call claims for redetermination. We think that's patently unfair. So, however, and that's part of our lawsuit. So if somebody has missed that 30 days, still file it, even if it's late, even if it's a month late or 2 months late, because filing it will at least preserve some of your rights. And we think we can get, one of the things that we'd like to do is get that 30 days provision stricken as just grossly unfair and not giving property owners an adequate amount of time to, number one, understand what their rights are, and number two, act on those rights.
Well, that's you're doing wonderful things with in California for the taxpayer, for sure.
Well, we just wish that lawsuit was moving faster. It's not, but we're asking for patience on behalf of all of our clients.
Now, there was a move afoot for what's called a split roll, where they were going to tax business property at a higher rate than residential properties, and I think they watched some polls on that and they backed away from it temporarily. Is that what's happening, or?
Well, the so-called split roll. Keep in mind that California has taxed all property at the same rate since the 1800s. This was not a creature of Prop 13. We've always had what we call a unified tax roll, which means that all property, whether it's industrial, commercial, residential, income producing like apartments or homes, all taxed the same rate. And we think that's a very fair system. Prop 13 came along and reduced that tax rate to 1%. But again, it didn't make any distinction between commercial and residential. You know, one of the things that the split roll adherents are saying is Prop 13 created this loophole for commercial property. Well, that's just patently untrue. Again, California's always had a unified roll. Prop 13 did not change that at all. What they do want is they do want to sock commercial properties with a higher property tax. Now, this is very unwise for a lot of reasons. Number one, California has ranked 50th out of 50 states in business climate for about 12 years in a row. We are very hostile to business. If we want the economy to grow, you don't want to start hitting commercial properties with higher taxes. California already generates vast amounts of tax revenues. We have the highest income tax rate in America, 13.3%. We're competing against states like Nevada and Texas that have a top marginal rate of 0. They have no income tax at all, and we have a 13.3% rate on top of what the feds charge. We have the highest state sales tax in America. We have the highest gas tax in America. We have the highest corporate tax west of the Mississippi. You know, over and over again, the measure of California's tax burden is tremendous. Now, people say, yeah, but you have Prop 13, you have low property taxes. But that's not true either. We are in the top half of all states in per capita property tax collection. So we're not even a low property tax state. Now, Prop 13 has provided a lot of tax relief for commercial properties, on homeowners, everybody, ag. But there is no reason, Alan, you and I know this, that we need higher taxes. There's a ton of revenue. The problem is that Sacramento just does not spend our tax dollars very wisely. Although our membership, the membership of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, is almost exclusively homeowners. We have, like I say, 200,000 members. We have some apartment owners who own a few units of apartments, some ag, but we don't represent big business. However, we recognize that, I think it was Benjamin Franklin who said, we either hang together or hang separately. So we have an agreement with the business community that we will protect Prop 13 for everybody, and we want to make sure that they don't take opportunities to raise taxes on ordinary citizen taxpayers. And right now we have a pretty strong alliance, an alliance strong enough that I think we can beat split roll. Now, you ask whether or not the polling indicates whether it could be successful or not. The polling is not favorable to our opponents. It's more favorable to us. But will that stop them from trying? I don't think so. I do believe we will see a split roll proposal, a substantial tax increase on commercial properties on the ballot in November of 2016. That's coming up sooner than you realize. And I think we're going to have a fight on our hands. I think they're going to roll the dice and count on a very liberal voter turnout. It's going to be a presidential election. They're going to count on a very liberal voter turnout model to pass not just this tax increase, but many others as well.
That could tie into another effort that that the liberals or progressives are doing, and that's to isolate corporations as being evil entities that shouldn't have rights that people have. For instance, they're sponsoring a constitutional amendment along those lines, and it's funded by George Soros.
Yes.
And this hate the corporation theme could be used to cause the homeowners to hate corporations, and thinking that the corporations are somehow abusing them.
Somehow evil. I think. I
don't know who would fall for it.
Well, I think some do. It's a very populist message that resonates with some people, and it resonates with quite a few people here in California. Unfortunately, I think that's unwise. Look, in one respect, corporations, businesses don't pay taxes because it's either their owners, who are individuals, pay taxes, their shareholders, their employees, or their customers.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there are flesh and blood people who pay the taxes that are stuck onto businesses. And I will tell you, split roll, I think some major corporations could weather that storm, but who it really hurts is small business. And we've worked very carefully with the very good small business organization called NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Business. Great organization. They represent California's mom and pop operations, and they've done the math, and they have realized, and they've calculated what split roll will mean for them. It would drive many of them out of business. And it's already very difficult to start a small business in the state of California.
You know, it'd be good for our viewers that may be in business, have a small business, it might be good to Google NFIB and see if you get the website, and then check them out. There's several organizations that people that are alert to these problems need to be kept informed about. Another one is the Pacific Legal Foundation and the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association, and of course for things in Calaveras County, this is the Calaveras County Taxpayer Association. So we're moving ahead, so the next question would be, besides that, what's the next most important thing to Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association?
Well, one of the things that we're focusing on very carefully is a number of these additional tax increases. We're going to see an oil severance tax. We will see a tobacco tax. One of the biggest threats to homeowners is lowering the 2/3 vote at the local level for parcel taxes, and that will be a huge blow to California homeowners who already that 2/3 vote is a protection. But even with that 2/3 vote, what we have seen is $2 billion a year collected in parcel taxes over and above your Prop 13 taxes. So one of the things that we need to do is rein in those parcel taxes and at a minimum stop the efforts that make it easier to impose these parcel taxes. I would urge your viewers to look at their property tax bill, and you have your Prop 13 amount, but look at all the other stuff that's on there. You have bonds, you may have a reclamation fee, you have a lot of parcel taxes, you have voter-approved bonded indebtedness. I would be very cautious. Look, there's some good public projects out there. For example, if a school district can articulate the need for a bond, we wouldn't automatically oppose that. But there are things that you can do with a bond to make sure that they're reasonable. You can use short-term financing so the interest costs aren't a lot. There's a number of efforts. There's an effort by some taxpayer groups called A Better Way, which is all these reforms for school bonds, and they've got some great ideas to make sure that there's accountability and less money being spent on interest costs. It makes a lot of sense. We're seeing these kinds of efforts up and down the state. But again, perhaps the biggest threat to us, and we did just see this week a proposal introduced in the California legislature. It's called Assembly Constitutional Amendment Number 4 to lower the 2/3 vote for special transportation taxes at the local level. Now, special tax could be either a special sales tax or a parcel tax. Either way, we think this is a very dangerous proposal.
Now, this is going to be a ballot proposal, or is this
Yes, as a proposed, the California legislature, with a 2/3 vote of each house, can put a constitutional amendment directly on the ballot. They still need voter approval, but as I just discussed, we might be facing a slew of these things, and our resources will be spread pretty thin. So with this particular proposal, we will do everything we can to kill it in the California legislature. One of the things that's happened is we have stopped the tax and spend lobby from getting a supermajority of 2/3 in both houses. In fact, we've stopped that in both houses. So I think we can stop proposals like ACA 4 from proceeding, but it's going to be a very, very tough fight. And we will, our full-time lobbyist, David Wolf, will be very, very busy this year.
We had David as a speaker with our group, and he was wonderful. He's a genius.
Yeah, he's a dynamic young man, and I'm glad to see some of these younger tax fighters coming up through the ranks. Our social media director, Eric Eisenhammer, as well, is one of these young guys who's a true believer on taxpayer issues, and that raises another issue. How do we reach taxpayers? One of the things the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is using social media. We're using Twitter, we're using Facebook, we're using Instagram. These are things that didn't exist when Howard Jarvis didn't even exist. A lot of PCs didn't even exist back in the mid-'70s. So we're making use, as I think we all have to, of available technologies to reach as many people as we can, particularly the young people who may not be as aware as others on these very critical issues.
Yeah, we certainly agree. Our taxpayer group, we're trying to reach out and teach the Constitution to the younger people.
Yes.
And we're doing it with small groups and clubs.
Yes.
And with a contest where they can win prizes, and we get donations for prizes, and it's been pretty popular so far.
Well, I think that's absolutely wonderful and critical, because what we're seeing in terms of civic engagement, last November's election was like an all-time low in statewide elections. The city of Los Angeles had an election last Tuesday, had 10% voter turnout, abysmal voter turnout. You've got a handful of people making decisions for tens of millions of people, and one of the problems is people don't engage in their civic responsibility. We do not believe that people should vote for the sake of voting, but we believe that people should become informed voters, and that is why I think it's very important to encourage people, not just encourage them to vote, which they should do, but encourage them to become informed voters, meaning read the newspaper, turn off the TV, and you don't need to watch every episode of Dancing with the Stars. Pick up a book, read a magazine, talk to your friends, find out where your interests lay, and try to figure out which politician is lying to you and which ones are telling the truth.
Yeah, it seems like the latter category is scarce.
yeah, that's true.
Well, there's so many great things you're doing. Actually, you've gone beyond just Prop 13. You're also protecting people's property rights, which tie into taxes. But there's more of a push on government regulation now than there ever has been in the past.
Well, yes, and as you and I both know, the land use regulations in California are perhaps the most draconian in the entire United States. We have this regulatory framework mandated by Senate Bill 375, which is supposed to be smart growth, but as we've seen over and over and over again, smart growth is really dumb growth, because what they've done is they've forced people into choices that they really don't want to make. They've driven people out of the state. California's lost a lot of our middle class, and for the bureaucrats to assume people are going to just stay here because we've got great weather here is idiocy. We have to understand that people do have choices, and we've had more than 1.2 million people move out of the state in the last 8 years in net domestic out-migration. That does not bode well for California's future.
What needs to be done to bring them back?
Well, first of all, we need to stop the bleeding. We need to make sure that we need to retain the businesses that are here, and then we need to attract new businesses. And you do that, you don't have to have the lowest taxes in the world, but something that more along the lines of the national average. Lower the tax rates, reduce regulations, and make sure that public policy decisions are made with a view toward how will people react to this. Will they react to the way we think they will, or will they move out of state? And unfortunately, as we've seen with Proposition 30 and these high taxes, a lot of wealthy have moved out. A lot of educated young people have moved out, and so that's not. And a lot of businesses have moved out. There's a list of businesses that's a mile long that have moved from California to Nevada or Texas, Intel, Waste Management, big corporations. This does not bode well for the Golden State, and if we want to recover that, we have to start thinking about how do we energize the economy, and how do we at least recognize the value of free enterprise.
It seems like if the free enterprise system was better understood by our news media, and even our informational media, or even our schools, then we could start to see a turnaround. It's awful hard to get information from the news now that doesn't have a slanting toward big government.
Yeah, it's true. And another thing that parents can do is teach their children good money management. Give them a budget. Tell them, if you're even 12 or 13 years old, that's not too young to know how to balance a checkbook, a simple checkbook. I mean, these are the kinds of things that we see young people coming up today that have no financial skills at all, and that's a first step as well.
Well, that's good enough. Now, for our viewers, you got to remember hjta.org. Go there, and you can join John and the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association and become part of the solution. Now, after you do that, of course, you go to calaveras.taxpayers.org. And our dues are only $12, his are $15. And join us and try to help our outreach efforts. We're at the Board of Supervisors every meeting. One of the wonderful things that we enjoy is small groups of people, such as your group and also the Pacific Legal Foundation. Today we had a luncheon and we had a speaker, John Wood from the Pacific Legal Foundation, and he went over very similar problems that you're facing and we're facing.
Right.
So to see that there's successes, even though they're not in the media all the time, it gives us a sense of we can do it.
Yes.
We can win. It might be a while, but we certainly need to work on it, and there's good evidence that it's worthwhile.
Yeah, and was it Patrick Henry who said all it takes to change the minds of men is to start a small brush fire, the brush fires of liberty? And I think that is an important message. We see up and down the state people who beat the odds, and we certainly applaud their efforts.
That's great. Now, of course, your website is hjta.org. And our taxpayer site is calaveras.taxpayers.org. And one of the things that I really appreciate is that you don't let up. You don't stop. You don't take vacations. Well, maybe you take vacations, but we don't know about it. Your business doesn't stop because you might take a day off.
No, that's true. I have a great staff. We have grown the organization. We have the full-time lobbyist. We have 2 full-time attorneys. We have a grassroots director, and we do a lot of community outreach and a lot of media. We do a lot of media appearances. And that's part of our effort to continue to preserve the brand, not only of our organization, but preserve the brand of Proposition 13, which is so important.
Well, you taught us to do the very thing we're doing now.
That's right. Good.
Yeah. You were our first guest, I think.
Oh, good. I'm glad I could do that.
And we learned how to do it right. We want to thank you for watching our program on Taxpayer Alert. Please watch us again. Have a great time.